Mhm.
because I really believe that if you have kind of a container for whatever it is you're presenting, whether that be a speech or a book or a theatrical production or a hard conversation, where I think people get into trouble is when it's just amorphous. It's like we just start the hard conversation, or we start the difficult thing, or we start the uh, presentation that's going to be hard and challenging without any framework around it. Like,
Welcome to Happy to Offend You. Life guarantees that somebody's going to be offended by anything that you do. In fact, somebody right now is offended by life itself, but they don't have to be. This show guarantees that someone is going to be liberated from being offended by somebody else's offensive behavior. What? Yes, we said it. This show sets out to prove not only how to be liberated from being offended, and also how to be happy to offend. So if you're already offended, welcome to the show. And here's your host of the very offensive, Michelle Nedelec. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I'm super glad that you are here with us today on Happy to Offend You, where you get to unravel the why behind the mystery that just because people are offended by someone doesn't mean that you're going to die. And in fact, if you can understand why they're not offended by the things that you do, well, life becomes better and we create better connections. Today, I am here with my amazing and amazingly offensive guest, Adriana. Everybody gets offended by them. I'm like, God, I'm really sweet. You know that I have only sweet people in this show, so you know that. But Adriana, thank you so much for being here with us today.
thank you, Michelle. Not a single person has ever introduced me as my amazingly offensive guest, Adriana. So I'm excited.
Hey. So give everybody a highlight of who you are and what you do for business.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adriana Baer. I'm a public speaking coach and a theater director. So essentially, I get paid to help people offend other people.
Yay! It's our favorite kind of
Yay!
person. So tell us, how did you get into that as your thing? Let's start there.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking back to myself in high school as a budding theater director. And one story that really popped for me when thinking about this particular topic was that when I was in high school, I very quickly realized that theater was this awesome place to be able to talk about really hard things that we couldn't talk about in other places, or it didn't feel like we really had full permission, but I could do that through other people's language in this kind of structure of, we're just doing a play over here. And I remember my junior year of high school, I was assigned, or I got to direct one of the full productions my senior year. So we were trying to figure out what I was going to direct that was going to be on the main stage, and the whole school would see it and everything. And I brought this play to my principal. And the play, which many of you might be familiar with, the musical Spring Awakening, but the play of Spring Awakening came, many, many years before. And it was this weird German play from the late 19th century, this German expressionist play about kids who were 14, 15 years old, going through all the things that kids go through. And I remember walking into my principal's office and I was like, this is the play that I want to do. And it's really, really difficult. And I want us to do a talk back after every single performance so that the parents can understand what we're going through. And in this play was abortion, rape, suicide, same-sex relationship, young girl prostitution. I mean, you name it, it was in here, but it was all in here in this frame of like late 19th century German austere structure. And basically this playwright was looking around going, this world is not supporting the people inside of it. And this play was written in 1889, and we were doing this play in 1999. And so, basically 110 years later, and I was like, but we're still doing these things. Like,
That
we're
is
still
awesome. One,
yeah.
how did you find that play?
Well, I know, right? Well, I was so lucky because I had amazing teachers, and I had a teacher who was my mentor, who's still, you know, a very close creative partner, inspiration person for me.
Yeah.
But he was like, here are a whole bunch of plays. And he was really smart. He was very young. He had just come out of like a fellowship in Europe and was really smart. I think he was like 28 at the time. And he was like, here's all these plays that are actually relevant to kids today. And it was this really complicated play. Anyway, my principal, God bless her, said yes. And so
Right.
we did this production, and it did wake up all of these people, right? Because these parents
Even if you're
are,
open to these ideas, it's a little gobsmacking.
yeah. So let's give some context. To be fair,
That is awesome.
I was in a private high school in California, Northern California. So like a
Nice.
super, like, you know, liberal environment that
Mhm.
was open to having conversations, but it was still you know, the 1999, 2000, like this was not a time when a lot of this stuff was even then openly talked about.
Right.
So anyway, bless her heart, she said yes. So we had a post-show discussion every single night.
Wow.
And I remember sitting there on the stage, you know, we'd all line up and we'd have this conversation. And I remember parents raising their hands being like, is this really going on for you? Are these things happening? You know, and the play was set far enough away that it's kind of cool because there's some distance to it, you know, so you can
Right.
kind of look at it and be like, oh, that. But they were clearly hearing what we were saying. And I was like, yes, yes, these things are happening. And so anyway, that I was 17 when I directed that show, and all the people in the show were like the right age for the characters. And it was that where I went, oh my God, like I can have this impact and I can have these really hard conversations with people through this format. I still maintain that was probably the best thing I ever directed because I didn't know enough to question my instincts. I just was like, I think we should try this. And we would do it. And everybody felt so passionate about the story we were telling that they came along on that journey. So yeah. Anyway, um, I started I started putting hard topics in front of people real young.
Right. Well, and the conversation of hard conversations I love because I think that it is there's a silliness that happened, and I'm not sure if it still is, of this whole cancel culture thing. And I'm like,
Yeah,
that just shuts down the conversation. That doesn't help anybody. It's not moving things forward. It's not articulating. You don't know what's going on their side. Talk to me about hard conversations, both kind of then if you want, and particularly now and in your business and with what you're doing, because I think hard conversations, the more we can embrace them, the better society becomes.
absolutely. And I think, you know, actually, I think that that idea of structure is really important and actually gives you a lot of permission. And this is actually something that I coach on. I have this saying, actually, as a director and a coach and a public speaking coach, which is within structure, there is freedom.
Mhm.
Because I really believe that if you have kind of a container for whatever it is you're presenting, whether that be a speech or a book or a theatrical production or a hard conversation, where I think people get into trouble is when it's just amorphous. It's like we just start the hard conversation, or we start the difficult thing, or we start the uh, presentation that's going to be hard and challenging without any framework around it. Like, this is what we're doing, and this is the
10 o'clock on a
container. And
Friday night when you're angry. So it's not the
yeah,
best time to do
maybe
that.
not. Or like when you're doom scrolling on the internet, you decide to like post something because you feel like I have to say something about this moment in time. But if you have some structure, like, okay, audience, you are coming to see a play, and in this play, you will understand inherently that the people on stage
Mhm.
are not actually the characters. They're a little bit removed. So
Mhm.
we're all looking at this thing and saying, how do we feel about this thing? Right. So that's the structure on stage. The structure in an office might be, you know, and this is another place where public speaking comes up, even though it's a smaller container. It's like, a lot of people I work with are leaders and they're trying to lead their teams better. And sometimes it's like, hey, we have to have a hard conversation. So let's set some parameters around what this is going to look like.
Right.
And then it gives people freedom within that, because they feel cared for before the conversation even starts. They're like, okay, I know what we're talking about. I know where we're trying to go, and they can fit inside of that. I think the worst case scenario and when things blow up and people get canceled is when there's not a thoughtfulness around that container.
Right. Well, and it happens at work too. I mean, when somebody has to be fired, you can't call a meeting, go, hey, I want to meet with you. Great. Okay, we'll see you at 1. And then, hey, by the way, you're fired.
Yeah.
That's just asking for trouble. Don't do that.
Right.
Like, it's to your point, it's this whole setting up the container, and it's not, hey, you've had some things going on, meet me in my office in 10 minutes. I mean, then they probably know what's going on. That's the, that's the container that I think anybody that's ever been fired is familiar with. But there's a better way to do it, is what I think I'm trying to say here. And maybe you're not firing people. Maybe you're just kind of going, hey, we're in a tight situation. You got to know that. And I don't want people to freak out and start stealing pens because they think they're going to get fired tomorrow. Although I don't care about the pens, take pens. But, it's being able to your point, framing a conversation, setting it up so that even if you're the CEO in a boardroom or you're on stage in front of your entire staff, if you're, doing an IPO, I mean, that in itself is a dangerous conversation.
Yeah. I think it also helps people listen right, which sounds kind of funny, but you want to teach people how to listen to what you're about to say. And if they have some information, even about the style, right? And I'm going to go into this room and I'm going to, try to make you laugh because I want you to, get excited about the work that's ahead, right? If you set up the thing as like, this kind of experience is this kind of energy, then people know, right? It's caretaking for your audience in the same way that we in the theater have to do with our audiences all the time. You would never set somebody up for a show like I just described, with like a picture of, a kid skipping down the street holding balloons. They would walk in and then feel kind of gobsmacked or take it. They'd be like, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for.
Right.
Right. So, but, we want to take care of our audience so that we have a successful time communicating. I don't think we have to handle everybody with kid gloves. Right? Because we want to be having hard conversations.
Well, it reminds me of a movie we went to once where there was a bunch of us who were friends and we're all excited about going to the movie. So we got the popcorn and the pop and the whole 9 yards, and we, 6 rows from the front, we've got all our stuff. Hey, do you want this? And it starts with the primary in the movie, his daughter getting kidnapped and raped. And we're like, oh, okay, I want to throw up. Not good. Like, there are ways to set but especially that. And I think the movie might have done okay, but it's like it could have done so much better. Like, it was a very good movie and a very good point to it, but it was a little abrasive to start with that scene without the setup of, hey, this is what this movie's about.
Right, exactly.
Might want to know that going in.
Right. Which I think people sometimes are like, but I want to shock people or surprise them. And I think there's a way to do that. But when you like do that kind of thing to people, then they don't trust you. And then they're looking for other places to be like, nope, see, I'm right not to trust you. You're messing with me, or this isn't what I was promised, or whatever. And then they stop listening.
Absolutely. So in the realm of being happy to offend somebody, I totally get it. You're going to fire somebody. It's like, I'm sorry, that's the way the business is going. And if you're offended, not my issue. I get it. And you can still set that person up for success. Because I have, as a business owner and entrepreneur of 25 years, never experienced getting fired when it wasn't a fantastic experience in hindsight. Best thing that could have ever happened to me. Thank God they fired me. And when I've fired other people, they move on to better things and they're thinking, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Thank God I don't work for her anymore. And it's not that I'm a bad boss, and probably am, but so, and that's okay. I do what I do.
I mean,
Well,
I don't
let's get this right. I have 4 rated podcast shows. I'm a bad boss. I do not stick to any of the HR stuff. Okay, so now that that's made fact, there's still a way to be able to do this. I don't go, hey, go edit this podcast and don't warn people that, hey, it's a rated show and this is what it's about. Don't listen to it with your mother if she's going to get offended, because
Right.
you're probably going to have a harder time trying to explain why you're doing what you're doing than it's worth.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So let me ask you, has there ever been any time when let me see, put it this way, when people have offended you, we'll start with that one, and it wasn't appreciated or taken kind of the way that maybe they thought it should, or you're like, hey, that could have been done differently, or hey, you're just an ass. I just don't want to deal with you anymore. How
Has
did
that
you
ever happened to that's
It's
that's
never happened to
never
you, right?
ever
Ever?
happened to me.
Right?
No one has ever been an asshole in my entire career.
I'm not sure if it's a human experience or if it's just, those of us in the entrepreneurial world that kind of have a different look on things. I'm pretty sure it's a human experience.
Yeah. So is the question, what do I do about it, or what happened and how did I react?
Give me a story and tell me what you did about it, whether it was funny, poignant, or just a
Okay.
plain old asshole.
Oh man. Well, so I used to be the executive artistic director of a nonprofit theater company. And if anybody's, for all you former nonprofit executives or current nonprofit executives out there, that you have your job and then there's a board of directors who is your boss.
Mm-hmm.
It is so, side note, I find this system extremely challenging and problematic in a lot of ways, because in the nonprofit sphere, usually the person who is running the organization, who's the head of the organization, is extremely skilled at whatever that organization does. In my case, running a theater. And the board is a bunch of other people who don't do what you do, but do other things, like they run IT for a corporation. They're in real estate. They're a banker. They're a lawyer. They're a community influence, whatever. It's usually people that have special skills that you need to run a nonprofit, but they don't do what you do. So you can have a boss that's actually 3 people, 5 people, 8 people, 16 people. And that
Talk
can
about
be
split personalities.
Oh my God. That can be extremely challenging, especially if you don't have a strong board chair who can lead the room,
Mm-hmm.
or can kind of be the spokesperson when it comes to giving you feedback, or helping support the leadership development of that person in charge. So I can't believe I'm going to tell this story, but I'm going to tell you this story. So I had an experience where I was running this company, and I was directing a production of this amazingly beautiful play that I loved. And during the course of directing this production, I had a miscarriage. And many people did not know that I was pregnant, because it was, I was in the first trimester, and for some reason, and I will maybe offend some people by saying this, but that's what we're doing here. This question of like, don't tell anybody until the first trimester is over, is that language is pretty typical.
Mm-hmm.
What that means, however, though, is that when you do have a pregnancy loss, then you don't have a lot of support around you, right? So I was going through this experience while I was opening this production, like 2 days before opening, I'm in the hospital. Luckily, I had an amazing team around me, my creative team. I had an incredible assistant that had worked with me for a number of years. Some of my best friends were in the show. So like I had people around that were taking care of the show so I could take care of myself.
Nice.
So the performance opens on Saturday. It goes beautifully. And on Monday, we have a board meeting. And you're just your monthly board meetings, and you're supposed to go and do your reports and whatever. And for some reason, I decided I needed to go because that's my job. So I'd been in the hospital on Friday, go to my opening night on Saturday, go to the board meeting on Monday, and I'm like exhausted, grieving. Everything feels terrible. But I go to them in pain. My husband, meanwhile, is working in Japan at the time, just happenstance. And we had just gone through a loss in our family. His father had just suddenly passed away like 2 weeks prior. It was like a rough time. But I'm like doing my thing that I do, which is like showing up anyway and going and doing my thing that I'm supposed to do, which is like pushing through. And I'm like, in a couple weeks, I'll get a break. So I go to this board meeting, whatever. I report the numbers. We do the thing. Everything is fine. I don't think anything of it. And I leave. And I get a call from my board chair, and he says, I'd like to go to lunch with you to talk about some stuff. Okay, fine. We would do this occasionally. So we go to lunch, and I think this is about, at maximum, it's 2 weeks later. From that moment of the board meeting. I think it was probably within the next week. And we're sitting at lunch, and he says to me, your attitude at the last board meeting was really unacceptable. You weren't your normal smiley self. And I hope that we don't see that kind of behavior from you again. And I remember just kind of freezing, being like, what is happening right now? Because I had gone in and done my effing job.
Right.
Me being smiley, turns out, has nothing to do with whether or not I'm showing up and doing my job. And also is like, in what world does a man get asked to get this feedback? In no world, it turns out. So then I was like, oh, okay. And I can't even really process this. And then he says, and the other thing we need to discuss is we need to know what your family planning plans are. Because if you're going to start having children, we need to make a plan for that inside of the organization to handle that when you're out. And I remember looking out the window of the restaurant where I was sitting, and it looked like an earthquake was going by. It was like I felt like I was underwater. Everything was in slow motion. Like the ground was going up and down. And it was like my whole system just shut down. And I was like, okay, well, I guess, I do. And this is the thing that makes me the most angry actually about this story, is that I didn't tell him to fuck himself.
You're a better woman than I am, because those words would have come out of my mouth before.
What I did was I answered his question, which is my great shame. I was like, well, yeah, we would like to have a family, but I'm pretty sure that, you don't decide to have a baby and one whoops shows up the next day. So I think we'll have some time to make some plans as an organization.
In my experience, the whole 9 months thing.
Turns out. I should say I then went on to later have a successful pregnancy, and I do have a child. And
Yay.
Also I quit that job.
Yeah.
So a few months later, I was like, well, and that was not the reason I quit, but that was absolutely I discovered in that moment that I did not have the right kind of backing from the leadership of this organization. And I was already really burned out because I'd been kind of carrying the weight of the financial responsibility of this nonprofit kind of on my shoulders for years. And a few months later, I remember I was with my husband, and I was like, I think I've got to be done. And in my resignation letter, I actually called him out, and I said, by the way, this is you can't, turns out also, you can't do that. You can't actually ask your employees
That's actually
about
against
this
the
kind of
rules
thing.
now.
Turns out illegal
Yeah.
and also unethical, immoral, and not your fucking
For a
business.
reason. And for those of you who are listening to this and you haven't caught on yet, why not? I am happy to have a conversation with you as to why this is a very inappropriate conversation to be having with your staff. And I will have it with you on a one-on-one that totally makes sense and is buying in. But if your organization is looking to hire more women and have more women in executive positions and you're having this kind of conversation, then this is why it's not happening. Let me just say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
So it was, I mean, that was one of those things that I just went like, there were so many moments that were problematic. It would have been problematic to stop at, you weren't smiley.
At the meeting.
Well,
No, most normal people would go, hey, how you doing? Anything wrong?
what, like, right. That could have been the moment to be like, gee,
we care about you and you seem to be having a bad
for 3
moment.
years straight, every single month during this meeting, you behaved like A.
Yeah.
And one day you behaved like Z.
B.
So yeah.
Maybe.
So the question might be, are you okay? Or like, do you need any extra support? At which point I would have been like, oh, family stuff. And I might have even shared what was going on with me. Right. Because I actually, I don't have, I feel like the shame and the hiding of women with pregnancy loss, when at minimum, we know the numbers are at least 25% of all pregnancies end in pregnancy loss, if not more. That's just what's reported. I actually feel like I want to talk about that experience myself because I want other people not to feel so alone or ashamed or like they don't have space to talk about it. However, I certainly didn't feel like there was any room for me to talk about myself as a human being after that. It was just like behavior. I was being checked. Anyway, I also can't imagine him asking a man what his family planning plans were, period, either. Right. Anyway, so that was offensive to me.
I can see that.
Yeah. And then
in his defense, he was probably happy to defend you because that was a generation they came in on and went, well, we need to plan for when women leave because we don't know how to deal with this. Women haven't left the workforce in 5,000 years. It's like, yeah, because they're not in the workforce. Hey, guess what? We're gonna have to make some accommodations. Hey, guess what?
Yeah. Or I don't know. It was so weird.
Right.
And I think part of it is that I was very young when I got that job. I was 29 and they hired me. Right. But this dude was in his 60s. And there was this very patronizing way of, it was a little bit like pat on the head, like, oh, we'll help you, niece. They all kind of treated me like their favorite niece until they didn't like what I was doing. And then they scolded me like a child, not all of them. Some of them were younger and better, but it was, yeah. So I'm actually on a board right now myself. I'm doing board service and I am very, very aware of that dynamic. Even as myself, I'm a 41-year-old woman and our executive director is I don't know, she's 38 or something. So we're very close. But I still am mindful of that power dynamic that you get into where you're a boss, you're a leader, or you're on the board, but you may not be I'm not an expert in the thing that she does. So my job is caretaking for the organization, but not acting like I know more than she does, about the running of the thing.
Well, and I think too that as long as we care about other people, we can, and we say stupid shit because we will say stupid shit, is to be able to backtrack on said stupid shit and go, okay, yes, but, and make sure that people are more important than the money, than the stat, than the whatever. Because at the end of the day, the problems will resolve themselves, so to speak, in that we'll figure out a way to overcome when we're focused on a way to overcome, but don't overcome people.
Yeah.
Right. I'm happy to be the way I am. And if it offends you, so be it. Find the door. But it doesn't mean I'm going to put you down while you're in the room. It's that, I'm going to show you the door pleasantly, open it up for you. And I'm going to let you be free and experience the whole world around you. And that's fine. And there's this, to your points that you've made very eloquent today, is one, framing those conversations, two, making people more important than the thing that you're looking at, especially in business. Because, and I think that we're starting to realize this. Like, to me, business today is substantially different than it was in the 80s. It is just paradigms shifts going on everywhere, but they still can exist. So being patient with people that aren't of your perspective is being able to share your perspective without just slamming them. Show them the door gracefully, let them be free if that's what you want to do, or educate them and frame the conversation. Either works.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting to also kind of look at where people feel ownership, or where they feel like, but this is my company too, or this is, I've bought into this thing, where they feel really emotionally or intellectually connected with the work. Then that makes it even harder and even more important that you respect that and say, they even might be a volunteer, right? And they're like, but I'm here because I feel passionate about this mission or this work or whatever. And you still have to, you have to do your job and you have to own your space in it. But I don't know, maybe it's about giving them time to just say their thing, even if you're gonna show them the door on the way out. Like, I don't know, people can feel that they can leave being like, well, it wasn't a good match, but that person listened for 10 minutes while I said whatever I needed to say, Yep.
Well, and I think too, so bringing it back to, one, exit strategies are a framing of, hey, we have to have an awkward conversation. How do we have this awkward conversation? And two, it doesn't have to end in that. So working with you, people can have a safe space in order to have dangerous conversations, in order to learn how to stand up in front of people that they're nervous in front of, that they know they're going to stick their foot in their mouth and say something really stupid. Being able to be able to coordinate those things in a safe place with you before they go into the bigger conversation. Because had this guy had a coach.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
Right?
And also I think part of that, and it's so funny, but part of that is really about getting grounded and breathing and like going internal for a little while, instead of always thinking about how is that person. I mean, you have to think about this, but second, how is that person going to react to what I'm saying? What am I saying? What are the exact words I'm saying? But first, maybe get like a little bit in touch with yourself and say, okay, how does my body feel when I'm delivering this information? If it's something yucky and I'm feeling really nervous about it, can I downregulate my nervous system so I'm more grounded and more present to have this hard and awkward conversation, or to make this speech that makes me really nervous? Because people can read your energy. So if you walk into that room and you're freaking out, they're going to start freaking out. The mirror neurons are going to fire and they're going to start freaking out too, even if they don't know why. So if you want them to chill, you've got to come in chill, So
absolutely. I love it. This whole conversation has been absolutely awesome. Thank you. I appreciate your time and effort. I know our listeners are going to want more from you. How did they start that journey with you?
You can find me and all of the things that I offer, including some free tools, including a free grounding meditation, if you want some help with that, on my website, which is adrianabaercreative.com.
Love it. And give us kind of a little bit of the scope of the work that you do. Is kind of working with people to shape their talks, not necessarily just on dangerous conversations, but anytime they want to get on stage,
that's right.
it. What else?
So I do public speaking coaching one-on-one in groups, and I will work with you if you need to just get better at it in general, or if you have a specific talk coming up that you want some help with, in which case we would also work on your script, on the content, on the material. And I have coaching live with me and also online courses as well. And then I also have a podcast called From Your Center that I co host with an integrative health coach and family nurse practitioner. And we talk about kind of the art and science behind all these tools for personal and professional development. So that's a resource as well.
I love it. Thank you so much. And we will, of course, have all of Adriana's links in the show notes. So go ahead and scroll down, click on those, open them up in a new browser because we're not done yet. I just want to thank you so much for your time and your willingness to have a dangerous conversation with me.
Thank you, Michelle, for having me.
Awesome. Peeps, this is Michelle Nudelak. We are definitely happy to offend you. So if you know somebody that needs to be offended, invite them to the show. Maybe even have him on as a guest. Who knows? But if you know somebody that just naturally offends other people by existing, I'd love to talk to them. See you next show.